An airport police dog persistently alerted to an abandoned bag. Could it potentially contain explosives? Hesitantly, security personnel opened the bag, and the contents necessitated an immediate evacuation. Here's the full story. Before we proceed, please share in the comments below where you're watching from. And if you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, remember to subscribe to stay updated on future content. A sterile glow from the fluorescent lights of Terminal 5 at O'Hare International Airport illuminated the polished floors as travelers rushed by, pulling rolling suitcases and carry-ons. A continuous hum of activity filled the air, punctuated by announcements over the PA system and conversations in a mix of languages. It was just past 7 a.m. as the morning international arrivals began to arrive, bringing the usual atmosphere that Officer Benjamin Linus knew from his 6 years with the airport's K-9 unit. Benjamin straightened his dark blue uniform jacket, his badge reflecting the overhead light as he observed the increasing crowd. Beside him, Lexus, his Dutch Shepherd partner for 4 years, stayed in perfect heel position, his dark eyes carefully examining the constant flow of passengers. "Another day in paradise, huh, boy?" Benjamin murmured, briefly scratching behind Lexus's alert ears. The shepherd leaned into his touch before returning to his vigilant posture. "Morning, Linus," Officer Teresa Wong called from her post near customs. "Lexus looking sharp today." Benjamin nodded in greeting. "Just finished training recertification yesterday. Passed with flying colors." As usual, Security Director Melissa Harrington's voice crackled through Benjamin's radio. "Attention all units. We are experiencing increased passenger volume in Terminal 5 today because of rerouted flights from Milwaukee. Please maintain a visible presence near checkpoints." "Copy that," Benjamin responded, already adjusting their patrol route mentally. K-9 Unit 7 will cover the east side checkpoints. Just another day at O'Hare, he thought. Routine, predictable, secure. As they turned the corner towards the less crowded international departures area, Benjamin noticed a subtle shift in the tension of Lexus's leash, the first sign that this day would be anything but ordinary. The change in Lexus's behavior was slight but unmistakable, a sudden, focused alertness that altered his usual patrol posture into something more intense. The shepherd's ears moved forward, his tail straightened, and his nose began working more intensely, taking in the air with increased urgency. "What is it, boy?" Benjamin asked softly, immediately noticing his partner's change in behavior. Lexus pulled gently on his lead, guiding Benjamin towards the eastern wing of the International Departures Terminal, a section currently undergoing renovation and less crowded than the main concourse. Early morning light poured in through large windows, revealing dust motes suspended in the air above the section with restricted seating. Benjamin surveyed the area, trying to understand what had caught Lexus's attention. The space was largely unoccupied, with only a handful of passengers asleep in chairs or absorbed in their electronics. Initially, nothing seemed out of place, but then Lexus abruptly moved towards a row of seats along the wall, his focus fixed on something located underneath them. The item was a bag, a medium-sized black duffel with no visible identification tag. It was positioned perfectly centered under the middle seat, partially hidden from a quick glance, but fully visible from their present viewpoint. Benjamin's training engaged instantly. "Secure," he instructed, and Lexus remained perfectly still, keeping his attention on the bag. However, something seemed unusual about Lexus's behavior. During training for explosive or narcotic detection, Lexus exhibited distinct alert behaviors, a passive sit for explosives and active pawing for narcotics. This was an anomaly. The dog's body was stiff with tension, and a low, sustained growl emanated from his throat, a sound Benjamin had seldom heard from his usually calm partner. "Lexus, check," Benjamin instructed, initiating the inspection signal. Rather than approaching the bag and indicating as he had been trained to do, Lexus retreated several steps. His growl deepened. His tail was now completely straight, hackles slightly raised, a posture unlike his usual alert stance. A passing custodian noticed them and began to approach. Benjamin raised his hand, stopping the man. "Sir, please step back," he ordered calmly but firmly. As if reacting to the newcomer, Lexus suddenly emitted 3 sharp, staccato barks, a sound so unlike his usual alerting behavior that it sent a chill down Benjamin's spine. Maintaining focus on the bag, Benjamin activated his radio. Control, this is K9 Unit 7 at Terminal 5, East Wing, Section C. I have an unattended bag exhibiting atypical K9 alert behavior. I request backup and implementation of area evacuation protocol. The dispatcher replied, copy that, K9 Unit 7 security personnel are on their way. Commence standard abandoned bag protocol. Benjamin then began clearing the surrounding area, speaking with a firm but controlled tone to avoid causing alarm. Esteemed guests, please gather your possessions and proceed calmly to the main concourse. Security personnel will guide you from that location. As the last non-employees left the area, a security team arrived, led by Lieutenant Jack Cassidy, the airport's senior security officer. His characteristic worried expression intensified as he evaluated the scene. What's the situation, Linus? Cassidy inquired, gesturing towards the bag. Unattended bag, sir. No discernible markings, placed intentionally beneath the chairs. Cassidy's gaze moved to Lexus, who stayed focused on the target, their body rigid. Your dog providing an unexpected alert? Benjamin responded, worry clear in his tone. This isn't his standard explosive alert, nor is it a narcotics detection. I'm not familiar with him behaving in this manner. Cassidy's face grew stern. Unfamiliar with this reaction? What is the significance of that? He should be alerting or he shouldn't be. A second security team arrived, bringing their usual detection tools. The lead technician, Raj Patel, started preparing a portable X-ray machine, observing Lexus with a professional gaze. Let's examine what's inside before we decide anything, Cassidy instructed. Sir, Benjamin insisted. I've been working with Lexus for 4 years. When he behaves like this, there's a valid explanation. As evacuation procedures began, Benjamin's thoughts returned to the day he first encountered Lexus, 3 years prior to their formal partnership. The recollection was clear. A scorching July afternoon at the Homeland Security Training Facility in Virginia, when Benjamin was attending specialized K9 handler training. This one's different, Trainer Martinez stated, guiding Benjamin toward an isolated kennel separate from the other training dogs. A Dutch Shepherd, roughly 2 years old, was discovered during a raid on a trafficking operation near the Mexican border. Benjamin had looked into the kennel, anticipating an aggressive or distressed animal. However, he encountered an intensely focused gaze from a slender, muscular shepherd with distinctive amber eyes. Unlike many rescued dogs, the dog did not bark or pace. He remained perfectly still, evaluating Benjamin with a nearly human intelligence. What is his history? Benjamin asked, maintaining eye contact with the extraordinary animal. Martinez referred to his clipboard. We're not entirely sure, he stated. The operation involved smuggling both drugs and people. This dog was discovered guarding a container holding children inside. He did not attack the rescue team, did not attempt to flee, but instead protected the kids. The strangest thing I've ever seen, Martinez commented. He's failed traditional explosive detection programming, Martinez clarified. Not because he lacks the ability to detect. His scent detection abilities are exceptional, yet he repeatedly signals to things we haven't intentionally introduced. We initially dismissed these as false positives. Benjamin inquired when Martinez paused. 3 times now, he's alerted on items or locations where we discovered nothing. Each instance, we submitted the indicated items for comprehensive analysis. On each occasion, further investigation revealed something previously undetected. Chemical precursors, residues, compounds our routine tests failed to identify. It was as if he perceived the world on a different sensory plane than our other dogs. Benjamin returned to the current reality as Patel's voice cut through his memories. The initial scan revealed standard items, clothing, toiletries, and what appeared to be documentation. No explosive compounds were found, nor any unusual wiring or devices. Cassidy directed a significant look toward Benjamin. There you have it. With due respect, sir, Patel added, there's a peculiarity concerning the interior lining. Observe this density variation. The bag appeared to have a subtly altered compartment. It was barely noticeable, but clearly not a result of standard manufacturing. Benjamin felt a sudden feeling of unease as he noticed Lexus looking at him, seemingly confirming his suspicions. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "I believe we must treat this with utmost seriousness. Lexus has identified something that our usual protocols aren't addressing." Cassidy finally gave the order, "Call the bomb squad. Implement full evacuation protocol, establishing a 100-foot perimeter." "Linus, I expect your dog to be correct about this." The bomb squad technicians advanced with methodical precision, their bulky protective suits making them appear almost robotic as they neared the abandoned bag. Benjamin and Lexus had been moved back to the perimeter line, where they maintained visual contact with the operation. "Remote assessment first," announced Garcia, the bomb tech lead, as his team deployed a small rover equipped with additional sensing equipment. Cassidy stood beside Benjamin, his posture betraying the palpable tension. "O'Hare deals with more than 2,500 lost items annually," he said. 99% are simply forgotten laptops and water bottles." He shook his head. "We're closing down half a terminal because of a dog's unusual actions." The rover approached the bag, and Garcia directed its unique sensors from a distance. Following several anxious minutes, his voice came over the radio. "No explosive compounds found, no radiation, no known biological agents detected." Shifting to a physical examination, Garcia proceeded, personally inspecting the bag with a specialized camera. Another individual arrived at the edge of the area, a woman wearing a fitted charcoal suit, her Homeland Security identification clearly visible. Agent Diana Walsh introduced herself briefly, asking about the circumstances. "Likely a false alarm," Cassidy replied, before Benjamin could respond. "Typical abandoned bag. No explosives have been found. We anticipate resuming operations soon." Walsh's keen gaze shifted from the surroundings to Lexus, who was now looking straight at her, his stance still tense and focused. "That your dog, officer?" "Linus. Benjamin Linus. And yes, this is Lexus," she stated, rather than asked, which surprised Benjamin. "I read the file. His alert behavior is unusual?" "Very," Benjamin confirmed. "I've never seen him react this way before." Walsh examined Lexus with heightened interest. "What exactly is different about his behavior?" "He is maintaining distance while remaining focused. Normally, he approaches detection targets directly. And these vocalizations?" As if on cue, Lexus let out another series of short, sharp barks. "They're not part of his training." Over the radio, Garcia's voice interrupted their conversation. "Physical inspection reveals no traditional threat devices. However, there's definitely a concealed compartment in the lining. Very sophisticated work, not visible to the naked eye." Walsh's face grew serious. "Don't open that compartment," she instructed firmly into her own radio. "Excuse me?" Cassidy questioned. "This is airport jurisdiction." "Not anymore," Walsh replied, showing her credentials more clearly. "That bag corresponds to a profile we're monitoring." "Officer Linus, how is your dog reacting? Is he retreating while still attentive?" Benjamin responded, seemingly taken aback. "That's precisely what's happening." Instead of explaining, Walsh quickly spoke into her radio. "Agent Walsh is requesting immediate hazmat support at O'Hare Terminal 5, East Wing. A potential CBR material is suspected. Priority code Alpha. Our sensors detect known threats," Walsh replied grimly to Cassidy's protest. "We've been tracking a new synthetic compound that evades standard detection. There have been 3 incidents in the past month: Dallas, Miami, and Phoenix. The only consistent detection has been unusual behavior from certain K-9 units. Specifically, alert without approach." Benjamin experienced a chilling realization. He was sensing something hazardous, though unfamiliar from his training. Therefore, he maintained a safe distance while staying vigilant. "Indeed," Walsh affirmed, "and should it prove to be what we suspect, your dog may have potentially saved hundreds of lives." The operations manager's face reddened significantly when Walsh requested a complete evacuation of the terminal. "Do you comprehend the implications of this request? This situation involves potentially disrupting travel for thousands of people and causing millions in lost revenue." "I understand perfectly," Walsh stated, her voice steady but with an unmistakable firmness. "And I'm not requesting it." Following a moment of heightened tension, Cassidy's radio crackled with a transmission from the airport director himself. After a short discussion, he addressed the group, his face serious. "The director has approved the full evacuation protocol for Terminal 5. We are initiating it now." With the evacuation announcement echoing through the terminal, Benjamin experienced a brief sense of relief, which was swiftly overtaken by a fresh worry. "If this is what you suspect, Agent Walsh," he thought, already observing the escalating disarray of the evacuation, "then whoever placed this bag here is probably still in the airport. And now we're setting everyone in motion, making them more difficult to track." Benjamin stated, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We need to find them before they realize we've discovered the bag. Lexus can help. If he detected whatever's in that bag, he might be able to track the person who handled it." Agent Harlow from the CBR response unit arrived and quickly coordinated with the hazmat team. Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, speaking in a low, steady tone. "We need to find who left this boy. Can you do that? Can you find them?" Lexus's intelligent eyes focused on Benjamin's face, a gentle whine escaping his throat, demonstrating understanding yet conveying worry. "I know it's dangerous," Benjamin said quietly. "We'll be cautious. But we need to find them." The hazmat team arrived, fully equipped in protective gear, their presence forming a strange, isolated zone of intense action within the now unsettlingly vacant terminal. Benjamin and Lexus stayed at the designated perimeter, observing as the specialists cautiously neared the bag. "Remote extraction first," the hazmat lead stated, deploying a specialized robot intended to manage potentially hazardous materials. While maintaining a negative pressure environment during the transfer, Harlow approached, holding a tablet displaying security footage. "We've got partial facial recognition from cameras near where the bag was placed. The individual is a male, approximately 30 to 35 years old. He is Caucasian and traveling alone. He entered through the north entrance at 6:14 a.m. He was carrying a bag. That was nearly 2 hours ago," Benjamin noted with concern, suggesting he could be long gone. Harlow countered, swiping to another image, stating he was last seen entering a restroom near Gate E9 20 minutes ago and has not emerged yet. Meanwhile, the hazmat team successfully accessed the concealed compartment within a specialized containment unit. The hazmat lead's voice crackled over the radio. Professional detachment briefly faltered. "This isn't just a chemical agent," he stated. "There's sophisticated delivery equipment in here. A timer, atomizer, distribution system, and documentation. A lot of it." The hazmat lead continued, his voice returning to its professional calm. "The dispersal mechanism was set for noon, 4 hours from now, when the terminal would be at peak capacity. Travel documents, multiple identities, and maps. Terminal layouts for O'Hare, Atlanta Hartsfield, LAX. This indicated a broader operation." A hazmat technician meticulously removed what seemed to be a small notebook, securing it in a transparent evidence bag, and subjecting it to a decontamination procedure before it was given to Harlow. "It's a manifesto," Harlow stated grimly as he examined the pages. "Concerning rhetoric, including expressions of extreme opposition to immigration and allusions to restricting international travel, has emerged. This indicated a planned terrorist attack with the intent to target foreign nationals at several airports. The hazmat team has identified the chemical compound involved. It is a synthesized neurological agent, non-lethal upon contact, but intended to induce panic, disorientation, and respiratory distress within a densely populated airport environment, potentially leading to widespread panic and chaotic trampling." Benjamin completed his thought. "Standard sensors wouldn't identify it, as it's designed to stay inactive until scattered." Harlow gave Benjamin a hotel key, which was located in an outer pocket of the bag and is now secured in an evidence bag. "It should be safe for your dog to analyze the scent from the bag without physical contact." "Lexus, scent," Benjamin instructed, holding the sealed bag close to the shepherd's nose without opening it. Lexus inhaled deeply, then looked at Benjamin, attentive and prepared. "Locate him." Benjamin gave the signal, and they proceeded into the terminal's interior, where their suspect might still be concealed. Lexus advanced with focused determination through the evacuated terminal, his nose working constantly as he followed the scent from the hotel key card. Benjamin kept a steady tension on the lead, allowing his partner sufficient freedom to work while remaining connected to his movements. Agent Walsh and 2 airport security officers trailed behind, maintaining a distance to avoid disrupting the scent tracking. The deserted terminal, usually filled with activity, provided a disturbing scene for their pursuit. Coffee cups remained warm on the tables. Breakfast sandwiches were left unfinished. Newspapers drifted in the air conditioning, which continued to operate despite the evacuation. As they headed toward Concourse E, Benjamin spoke softly into his radio, while Lexus guided them past closed duty-free shops and empty waiting areas. Lexus abruptly stopped at a junction of corridors, his sense of smell working intensely as he appeared to evaluate different scent paths. Following a brief pause, he turned purposefully toward a service corridor labeled Authorized Personnel Only. "He is entering the restricted area," Benjamin confirmed into his radio. "Request backup at Service Corridor E42. The door to the service area was slightly ajar, a further cause for concern, as these doors were mandated to remain secured at all times. Lexus's pace increased, his body language indicating a closer approach to their target. The narrow corridor opened into a more spacious back-of-house area where airport operations handled luggage, supplies, and equipment. Lexus paused once more, moving around a section close to a staff break room before returning towards a door labeled Electrical Access. His actions changed slightly, his ears perked, his posture suggesting he's found their target. Through the little, wire-reinforced window, Benjamin could see activity inside, someone quickly collecting things from a backpack. Subject identified, Benjamin spoke into his radio. Male matches description, seems to be getting ready for something. Request immediate tactical response. Lexus emitted a warning bark. The suspect had observed their presence through the window. Immediately, the man inside began moving, displaying frantic energy, retrieving something from his pack. "No time," Benjamin responded urgently. "Subject is actively handling unknown materials. We're moving in now." With practiced coordination, Benjamin and the security team positioned themselves at the door while Walsh covered their flank. With Benjamin's approval, an officer opened the door, and they entered quickly. "Airport police, Homeland Security, hands where we can see them," Walsh ordered, raising her weapon. The suspect, a thin man with close-cropped hair and pale eyes, paused briefly, his hands near what looked like another modified bag resembling the one they had discovered. He then moved swiftly, lunging for a small canister on the workbench. "Another device," Benjamin cautioned, issuing a command at the same time. "Lexus, stop." The Dutch Shepherd surged ahead with intense focus, expertly trained to neutralize dangers without causing serious harm. He intercepted the suspect's arm just as he attempted to reach the canister, using a controlled pressure with his jaw that made the man cry out and fall backward. "Don't move," Walsh instructed as Benjamin secured Lexus, and the security officers moved in to restrain the suspect. A brief examination of the room exposed the troubling extent of the operation, including another partially assembled dispersal device, additional documentation, and what seemed to be communication equipment. The suspect remained handcuffed to a chair in the airport security office, his gaunt face set in a look of scornful silence as Agent Harlow and a recently arrived FBI agent prepared for questioning. "His name is Ethan Mercer," Walsh told Benjamin, reading from a preliminary report on her tablet. "A former chemical engineering student who left school 3 years ago had been flagged for extremist online activity on several watch lists. However, no action was deemed necessary until now." Through the speaker, they could hear Harlow starting the interrogation, using a methodical and controlled approach. Mercer remained silent, offering only occasional smirks and shrugs in response. The interrogation stretched on for several minutes without significant advancement until the FBI agent presented photographs of the disassembled device on the table. A subtle expression crossed Mercer's face, not fear, but something resembling pride. "You were fortunate," Mercer finally said, his voice unexpectedly gentle and clear. "If not for that dog." Benjamin noticed Lexus stiffen next to him at the mention, as if the shepherd recognized he was the subject of discussion. "How many more?" Harlow asked, leaning forward. Mercer's smile broadened a little. Sufficient. Today marked the commencement. The purification process has begun, and the impending events are unstoppable. A disturbance in the hallway captured their focus when the hazmat team leader arrived with pressing information. "We have finished the analysis of the communication devices located with the suspect," he stated. "They are burner phones, each containing only 3 numbers in the call history. Each of those 3 numbers traces back to prepaid phones bought in separate cities." Walsh suspected Dallas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. His assessment proved accurate, the hazmat lead verified. Further details emerged. The devices incorporated synchronized timers, intended for simultaneous activation across all locations. "Your phones betrayed you, Ethan," Harlow stated, her voice steady through the interrogation room speaker. "We are currently monitoring your associates." He glanced at his watch with a studied nonchalance. "They are likely already in custody. Now, the crucial question remains: who will break their silence first?" The possibility of avoiding a lifetime in solitary confinement hinged on cooperation. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on Mercer's face. His meticulously built resistance started to falter. "Your dog ruined everything," Mercer abruptly said, glaring at the one-way glass as if he could see Benjamin through it. "Those devices were undetectable. We tested them for months. How did that animal know?" As the sun set over the O'Hare runways, Terminal 5 was declared clear of all threats. Limited operations had resumed in other areas of the airport. Thousands of passengers remained displaced, their travel plans disrupted by the day's events. Benjamin stood by a wall of windows overlooking the tarmac, watching planes slowly returning to their gates as Lexus rested at his feet, finally relaxed after the intense day. "Officer Linus," Agent Walsh approached, appearing weary but satisfied, "and thought you'd want an update before you left." Mercer provided his contacts after approximately 3 more hours of interrogation, she reported. Tactical teams apprehended 2 accomplices in Atlanta and 1 in Los Angeles, all possessing similar devices in early preparation stages. Dallas proved to be a false lead, a deliberate misdirection, potentially in response to compromised communications. "We stopped it," Benjamin confirmed, his voice conveying obvious relief. "Completely?" Walsh affirmed, looking down at Lexus with a gesture of respect. "The timing was absolutely critical. Had that first device deployed successfully, it would have provided data enabling improvements to the others. Each subsequent attack would have been more effective. Do you have any understanding yet of how he managed to detect the compound when none of our equipment could?" Walsh smiled faintly. "Our lab has a theory. The compound's chemical profile shifts slightly upon exposure to the surrounding atmosphere. This characteristic contributed to the difficulty in its detection. Standard instruments are often adjusted to recognize defined, consistent profiles. Lexus, however, operates differently. Canines don't use calibration. They interpret scent data through unique methods, identifying patterns and alterations beyond the capacity of current technology." Dr. Aris knelt down to Lexus's level, receiving a questioning head movement from the shepherd. "This particular dog appears exceptionally skilled. It's likely his early experiences contributed to his advanced detection abilities." Lieutenant Cassidy arrived, his initial doubts giving way to clear respect. "The director has scheduled a meeting for both of you tomorrow morning. A commendation is planned. The FBI is now assuming control of the investigation," Walsh stated. "However, Homeland Security remains keen on evaluating your K9's detection capabilities. With your permission, we'd like to develop a training program utilizing Lexus's responses to assist other dogs in recognizing these types of threats." As Walsh and Cassidy departed, Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, carefully taking the dog's face in his hands. The intelligent amber eyes that had first connected with him years ago at the training facility looked back with the same unwavering trust. "You did well today, partner. Really well." He stroked his hands along Lexus's sides. A final check was performed to ensure there were no signs of distress or exposure. Finding none, the lead was reattached to the tactical collar. "Let's go home." As they walked through the terminal, which was gradually reopening, Benjamin thought about how many near misses in his career had depended on split-second decisions and instinctive reactions. But today had been different. Today focused on the deep trust developed between Handler and K9 through years of collaboration, a connection that went beyond training manuals and standard procedures. What Lexus accomplished couldn't be duplicated by technology or documented in reports. It represented the peak of natural aptitude, specialized training, and something more intangible, a nearly instinctive ability that some remarkable working dogs appeared to have. Benjamin had consistently trusted his partner's skills, but today had solidified that trust into something absolute. No matter what difficulties they encountered moving forward, they would confront them as a team, their partnership strengthened by the experiences of today. The following morning would involve reviews, paperwork, and probably numerous inquiries regarding Lexus's distinctive detection abilities. For tonight, Benjamin felt satisfied, knowing that many travelers would return home safely to their families, completely unaware of how narrowly they had avoided disaster, and how a Dutch shepherd with amber eyes had stood between them in the midst of chaos. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal perceived something that humans completely missed? Animals often possess remarkable abilities that science is still trying to understand. This story highlights how vital these instincts can be in critical situations. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with animals that appear to possess more understanding than the humans nearby. Considering you were in Officer Linus's position, would you have believed your canine partner's atypical behavior, despite technology and protocols indicating no danger? It requires significant courage to support a partner's instincts when others advise caution. Can you recall a time when you made a tough choice relying on your gut feeling instead of data? Working dogs, such as Lexus, contribute to saving many lives daily across the globe due to their remarkable skills and commitment. Do you have personal encounters with service animals or working dogs that impressed you with their intelligence and abilities? Please share your stories in the comments below. Inspired by Lexus's incredible story today? Don't miss our next video. Subscribe and enable notifications. We release another unforgettable story of heroism and dedication from the world's most extraordinary canine officers every day at the same time. Give a like if you think these four-legged heroes deserve more recognition for their life-saving work. We think you'll enjoy this video if you love dogs or are interested in canine units. Please see our previous stories, which are appearing on the screen now. And remember, behind every great police dog is a partnership built on unwavering trust and communication. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another amazing canine story. The funeral was silent, heavy with grief until the police dog acted. He jumped onto his handler's casket, and his subsequent actions left the entire room in tears. Here's what happened. But before we get into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. And if you love extraordinary police dog stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The October morning arrived gray and somber, as if the sky reflected the sadness of those assembled at Oakwood Memorial Chapel. A cool breeze stirred the nearby maple trees, their crimson leaves sometimes detaching to briefly swirl, before landing on the gravel pathway where numerous police cruisers were arranged in precise formation. Within the chapel, the atmosphere was thick with the combined fragrances of polished wood, floral displays, and the palpable stress of shared sorrow. Officers in dress blues occupied the pews, their badges adorned with black mourning bands. Their faces, typically hardened by years of service, visibly strained to remain composed as they observed the flag-draped casket at the room's front. Officer Michael Mike Reeves, 34 years old and an 8-year veteran of the Riverside Police Department, a recipient of 2 commendations for bravery, rested silently within the wooden box. An official portrait, positioned on an easel next to the casket, depicted a man with keen hazel eyes and a gentle smile that didn't fully convey a solemn demeanor. In the front row, Mike's parents were seated, visibly burdened by the sorrow of outliving their son. His mother held a handkerchief, while his father, a former officer, gazed forward. Next to them, Mike's sister Elaine dabbed at tears that appeared unending, her shoulders shaking with each inhale. Near the side entrance, a disturbance caught the attention of several people. Officer Terrence Wilson worked to manage a Belgian Malinois, whose strong physique trembled with anticipation. The dog's golden-brown eyes moved quickly around the chapel, examining every face and every area, as if looking for someone expected to be present. "Easy, Ranger," Wilson said softly, tightening his hold on the leash as the dog made a low, mournful sound. Ranger had been Mike's partner for 4 years. Working as a team, they had located missing children, arrested dangerous suspects, and uncovered hidden contraband that could have gone unnoticed. They were the K-9 unit's most accomplished team. Now Ranger's ears twitched, his nose working intensely, showing uncertainty in his posture. 4 years prior, Officer Mike Reeves had been in the impersonal hallway of the Regional K-9 Training Center, anxiously straightening his uniform collar. Following 6 years of patrol work, he received approval for the K-9 unit, a goal he'd held since his academy days. The training sergeant, a stern woman named Martinez with 20 years of experience visible on her face, guided him towards the kennels. She cautioned him, her keys making noise as they walked, not to become too attached too quickly. He would work with 3 prospects before final assignments were made. Some partnerships succeed, others fail. The dog's choice is as important as your own. A lively atmosphere filled the kennel area. German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, and Dutch Shepherds were watchful in their enclosures. Martinez paused at the 3rd kennel, where a tan Malinois with distinctive facial markings stood rigidly at attention, amber eyes following every movement. "This is Ranger, 18 months old, imported from a European working line," Martinez said, observing Mike's reaction. "He has a high drive, high intelligence, and could be too intense for some handlers." A prior candidate found him unmanageable, describing him as too intense. Mike lowered himself to the dog's level, keeping eye contact. Typically, police dogs displayed immediate enthusiasm or aggression upon approach, but Ranger was an exception. He stayed perfectly still, evaluating Mike with a disconcerting intensity, as if peering directly through him. "Hey there, partner," Mike said gently. At those words, a slight alteration appeared in Ranger's stance. A minor change that only Martinez detected, his eyebrows lifting a little. The dog moved toward the kennel gate with careful steps, paused once to sniff at Mike's offered hand, then settled, holding eye contact. "Well," Martinez said, "that's certainly not what I expected." The bond was instant, though neither person nor dog could articulate it. When they started training together the following day, the other handlers observed in amazement as Ranger seemed to predict Mike's instructions almost before he voiced them. By the 3rd week, Martinez discontinued the rotations, formally assigning pairs. Their initial significant challenge arose 6 months later, a missing 10-year-old child in Oakwood Park. The search had been ongoing for hours, with numerous agencies searching the thick woodland as night fell and temperatures decreased. Mike observed Ranger assessing the scene, tracking a scent trail that other canines had overlooked. "He's detected something," Mike transmitted to the command post. "We are proceeding east towards the creek bed." Rain had begun to fall, washing away scent particles, but Ranger never hesitated. He led Mike through thickets and over fallen trees until they found the boy, huddled beneath an overhanging embankment, hypothermic but alive. Their partnership extended beyond statistics. Mike had remained single, his apartment becoming their shared domain. Morning runs continued regardless of weather. Evenings were spent reinforcing training exercises that had become more like games, their lives completely intertwined. Mike's parents had thoughtfully provided Ranger with a Christmas stocking, acknowledging him as part of the family. The 911 call was received at 2:34 a.m. on Thursday, reporting a domestic disturbance on Elm Street, a residential area of modest single-family homes. Dispatch records indicated this was the 3rd call originating from that address within the past 2 months, with prior incidents resolved without any arrests. Officer Chun was already en route, requesting additional support as per standard protocol. K-9-7 was ready to assist, as Mike had radioed, with Ranger alert in the specialized compartment behind him. Acknowledged K-9-7. The report indicated a male subject, possibly armed, with children present in the home. Mike's cruiser arrived approximately half a block from the address, maintaining dark lights to minimize the risk of escalation. Chen's patrol car was already on scene, positioned strategically to provide cover. Mike secured Ranger's tactical harness, and the dog instantly transitioned to working mode. "Report, what is the situation?" "Mike," she said as they neared Chun, who was positioned behind her vehicle door, hand on her holster. The male subject was identified as Jacob Reynolds, age 42. His wife had initiated the call, stating he had been consuming alcohol and had begun threatening her with a handgun when she announced her intention to leave him. 2 children were present inside the residence, aged 8 and 5. The house appeared dark, with only a single light illuminating the living room. Abruptly, the front door swung open, and a woman emerged, holding 2 children, all still in pajamas. "He's got a gun," she gasped, as Chen directed them towards the patrol cars. He stated he wasn't returning to jail. A records check verified Reynolds had previous arrests for assault and unlawful possession of a firearm. The situation had progressed from a domestic disturbance to a potential armed standoff. Reinforcements were on the way, estimated time of arrival 4 minutes. Dispatch updated, SWAT alerted but assembling. "We might not have 4 minutes," Mike responded, observing movement at the window. The subject appeared increasingly agitated. Additional patrol units arrived, officers taking positions around the perimeter. Mike released Ranger's leash, giving him a hand signal to stay close, a command that would keep the dog within 3 feet without restricting his movement. They proceeded to the side of the house, utilizing shadows for cover. "Got a visual," Mike reported quietly into his shoulder. Mike's subject in living room, confirmed armed, handgun in right hand, appears highly agitated. Captain Walsh's voice crackled over the radio. "Hold positions."
Ostage négociateur en route.
Reynolds, however, disregarded the order. The front door exploded inward. A figure appeared against the light within, weapon raised. "Stay back," he yelled, swinging the gun haphazardly between officers. Reynolds discharged a stray shot that struck Chen's patrol car. Officers retreated behind cover, issuing verbal instructions but refraining from firing due to the family's location behind vehicles. Reynolds moved down the front steps. One now pointed directly at the group, including his wife and children. Mike assessed the situation instantly. Reynolds had an unobstructed view of his family. Officers lacked a secure vantage point, and the man's finger was closing on the trigger. Mike gave Ranger the silent command they'd practiced repeatedly. 2 quick taps on his thigh, indicating an apprehension attack. Ranger surged forward with explosive speed, a tan blur in the darkness. At the same time, Mike moved to flank, positioning himself between Reynolds and his intended targets. Reynolds noticed the dog approaching and redirected his weapon towards the new danger. 2 shots echoed through the night. Ranger connected with Reynolds' arm, the expertly trained bite causing the man to drop his weapon. Both men went down, but Reynolds managed to fire first, with a bullet impacting Mike's chest just beneath his vest. A second shot followed from Mike's service weapon as he fell, hitting Reynolds in the shoulder, disabling him but not fatally. "Officer down! Officer down!" Chen's voice broke over the radio as she hurried to Mike, who had fallen onto the asphalt. Ranger kept his hold on Reynolds until another officer secured the suspect, then immediately moved away from the scene, a course of action he would not typically take, and rushed to Mike's side. The dog whined, pawing at his partner's chest where blood was quickly spreading across his uniform. "Stay with me, Reeves," Chen urged, applying pressure to the wound. "Bus is 2 minutes out." Mike's breathing came in shallow gasps, his eyes finding Ranger's. He whispered, "Good boy," lifting a shaking hand to touch the dog's head. "Best partner ever." Ranger lay down beside him, pressing his body against Mike's side as paramedics arrived. They worked frantically, loading Mike into the ambulance, but the bullet had struck at an angle that sent it beneath the protective vest, severing a major artery. Officer Michael Reeves was pronounced dead at Riverside Memorial Hospital at 3:28 a.m. While emergency personnel desperately attempted resuscitation, Ranger stayed in the emergency room hallway, with Officer Wilson holding his leash. The dog's eyes remained fixed on the trauma bay doors. When the doctor finally came out, shaking his head, Ranger appeared to comprehend before any words were spoken. His body drooped, the confident stance faltering as a howl began, a sound so intense, so resembling human sorrow, that seasoned emergency staff averted their gaze. Inside the chapel, the funeral service had commenced. Chief Roberts moved to the podium, his usual strong demeanor tempered by sorrow. Officer Michael Reeves represented the epitome of what it means to serve in the badge. He began to speak, his resonant voice firm despite the emotion evident in his eyes. During his 8 years of service, he demonstrated consistent courage, compassion, and dedication to this community. Nearby, Ranger's restlessness grew. Wilson held the leash securely, yet the dog's attention remained fixed, focused on the casket where his partner rested. The chief noted that Mike's devotion to his canine partner, Ranger, had forged one of the most successful teams in our department. Together, they were credited with over 200 successful operations, saving countless lives and enhancing the safety of our community. Mike's mother wept softly, comforted by her husband's embrace. His sister Elaine remained stiffly beside them, sometimes touching the canine unit pin Mike had given her last Christmas. Captain Walsh then stepped to the podium, recounting a memory of Mike's first day on patrol. He arrived 30 minutes early, his uniform so impeccably pressed it appeared it could have cut paper. Walsh remembered, prompting a few sorrowful smiles. When I inquired about his promptness, he stated, "My dad always told me if you're on time, you're already late." Mike consistently exceeded expectations. As personal recollections transitioned into the official ceremony, Ranger displayed increasing signs of distress. The dog breathed rapidly, adjusting his posture, and kept his gaze fixed on the casket. Wilson worked to manage the situation, understanding the importance of the moment, yet obligated to ensure order throughout the service. The department chaplain commenced the religious segment of the service, his words of comfort seeming inadequate given the sight of a flag-draped casket and a room filled with grief. Though Officer Reeves walks through the valley of the shadow of death, he fears no evil, the chaplain stated. At these words, Ranger emitted a low whine that resonated through the quiet chapel, and several heads turned, with expressions of understanding rather than annoyance appearing on their faces. The service continued with the presentation of Mike's badge and service weapon to his parents. The department's bagpipe player moved to the front, the poignant melody of Amazing Grace echoing through the chapel. As the bagpipes ceased, a quiet stillness settled over the chapel. The funeral director walked to the podium, ready to provide directions for the procession to the cemetery. Prior to speaking, Ranger's demeanor changed significantly. The Belgian Malinois froze, his body trembling as if electrified. His eyes fixed on the casket widened. His breathing quickened, nostrils flaring as he perceived something only he could detect. Every muscle in his powerful frame tensed, coiling like a spring. "Something's wrong," Wilson whispered to Martinez, tightening his grip on the leash. "He's never acted like this before." Martinez recognized the signs. "That's not aggression," she whispered back. "That's recognition." At that moment, Ranger initiated his action with a swift advance that surprised Wilson. The dog broke free of the leash held by his handler. Multiple officers reacted to try and stop him, but Ranger was too quick. His actions were deliberate and purposeful as he sped down the central aisle. A collective intake of breath spread through the chapel as the Belgian Malinois moved toward the front, his paws making no sound on the carpeted floor. Mike's mother emitted a quiet cry, his father partially rising from his seat. Chief Roberts prepared to proceed, yet Ranger's behavior created a moment of hesitation for all present. It wasn't a display of hostility or fear, it was a sign of clear intention. Ranger approached the casket and halted, inhaling deeply around its sides. Then, with the same effortless skill that had distinguished him during his service, he jumped up, his front paws landing softly on the casket's rim. For a brief instant, he maintained his balance there, his amber eyes assessing the gathered mourners as if awaiting consent. There was no movement and no sound. A hush fell over the entire room. Ranger, with deliberate motions, pulled himself completely onto the casket, his nails producing the faintest clicking sound on the polished wood. The American flag covering the casket moved a little under his weight. The dog turned once, then positioned himself on top of the casket, directly above where Mike's chest would be. "Oh my God," Elaine whispered, tears flowing down her face. Ranger lowered his head, pressing his nose against the wood. He took a deep breath, then released it in a trembling exhale that appeared to hold all the grief imaginable. His ears pressed against his head as he whined, a sound so sorrowful it seemed to permeate the very walls. "Should I?" Wilson began, taking a tentative step forward. Captain Walsh raised a hand, halting him. "No," he said softly, "let him be." The dog's behavior shifted from active to observant. He assumed the familiar alert stance he had held many times in the patrol car, watchful, protective, prepared. His gaze moved across the room as if still performing his duties, still safeguarding his partner. Ranger remained perfectly still, his chest rising and falling in a pattern that appeared synchronized with an unseen power. The first shock among those grieving subsided into a deep silence, not distressing, but respectful. Then Ranger performed an action that shifted the moment from poignant to truly unforgettable. With deliberate slowness, he lifted his right paw and pressed it flat against the American flag, precisely over the spot where Mike's badge would be on his uniform. He maintained the position, unwavering, resolute, and clear. Elaine reacted with a gasp, her hand covering her mouth. "The salute," she breathed, her voice just audible to those close by. "That's Mike's special signal." A quiet buzz of conversation arose within the chapel, as those familiar with the meaning shared it with others. 3 years prior, Mike had developed a distinctive training cue with Ranger. It was a discreet signal, used exclusively between them, a customized gesture that Ranger would execute only in reaction to Mike's particular hand movement. This was not a component of regular police K-9 instruction. It was intimate, unique, and shared solely by them. Officer Chun, who was present the night Mike passed, moved closer to Captain Walsh. "Mike's last touch," she whispered, her voice cracking. Prior to the ambulance arrival, he touched Ranger's head in the manner he always used when issuing that command. It wasn't simply a gesture, Martinez explained softly to those present. It represented their method of conveying a message, signifying mission accomplishment when verbal communication was impossible. I have never observed another team exhibiting such a profound connection. As Ranger held the salute, his gaze remained steady and observant, as if anticipating additional direction. A profound quiet settled over the chapel, punctuated only by quiet weeping from Mike's family. Mike's father rose abruptly, his action capturing everyone's attention. The former officer moved toward the casket deliberately, maintaining a dignified posture despite the sadness visible on his face. He halted near Ranger, standing respectfully without touching the dog. Then, with careful control, he performed a formal police salute. "Mission accomplished, son," he said, his voice thick with feeling but audible in the still room. One by one, each uniformed officer in the chapel stood and repeated the gesture, a multitude of salutes recognizing not only their deceased comrade, but the connection they were observing. Even civilian mourners rose, palms on their chests, accepting something beyond common comprehension. Ranger maintained his posture for a few more seconds, then gradually lowered his paw. He adjusted his position near the casket, turning to look at Mike's father. The dog's ears rose, his keen eyes observing the man's face. "He was so proud to be your partner," Mike's father said to Ranger, his voice a quiet murmur. "Every day he told us how fortunate he was to have you." The chaplain, who had been observing with evident feeling, moved forward once more. "In 20 years of service to the department," he said, speaking to those present, "I have conducted far too many ceremonies like this one. I have never seen such a demonstration of the connection between an officer and his canine partner." He paused, regaining his composure. "It seems there are relationships in this world that even death cannot break." The chaplain's words appeared to fill the chapel, offering solace where it had seemed impossible just before. Mike's mother, who had been almost devastated, stood a little straighter, her gaze fixed on Ranger. Mike frequently claimed the dog understood everything, she stated, in a voice audible to those around. He asserted Ranger could occasionally read his mind. She wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. "I believed he was overstating things." Chief Roberts approached the podium once more, his own demeanor noticeably strained. "I believe we should modify our proceedings," he remarked, glancing at the funeral director. "It seems Ranger will be with his partner for the rest of the service." Throughout the service, Ranger stayed on the casket, a quiet protector watching over his companion. The funeral director, showing impressive flexibility, modified the arrangements to accommodate the dog. The customary pallbearers were in place, though questions remained regarding the concluding procession. "We need to proceed to the cemetery shortly," the director said to Captain Walsh. Walsh responded with a nod, then moved towards the casket with deliberate steps. Ranger spoke softly, mirroring the tone he had often heard Mike use. "We need to take Mike now." The dog's ears twitched at the familiar name, his amber eyes following Walsh's movements. He remained still, shifting his weight and settling more firmly atop the American flag. Mike's sister, Elaine, rose from her seat, dabbing her eyes with a crumpled tissue. She walked towards the casket, her steps unsteady but resolute. She had observed the strong connection between her brother and his canine partner from the very beginning. She recalled numerous family dinners where Ranger sat at Mike's feet, and holidays where the dog received gifts alongside everyone else. "Ranger," she said softly, extending her hand palm up, mirroring the gesture she had seen Mike use many times. "It's okay, boy." The Belgian Malinois' attention turned to her, his nostrils flaring slightly as he analyzed her scent. The scent was close enough to Mike's to be recognized as belonging to his family. His ears moved forward, his head tilting as if assessing the situation. "Mike would be so proud of you," she said, her voice cracking. "You were the best partner he could have wished for, the best friend." Something in her words, or perhaps her tone, appeared to connect with the dog. Ranger looked from Elaine to the casket below him, then back to her. A quiet whine came from his throat. It wasn't a sound of distress now, but of inquiry. "I know," she murmured. "I miss him too." With extreme gentleness, she placed her hand on the dog's back. Ranger tensed briefly, then relaxed into the touch. Elaine stroked his fur, mirroring the way she'd seen her brother do after their shifts together. "We need to take Mike to his resting place now," she explained, speaking as if the dog understood every word. "Perhaps he did. Will you help us do that?" The chapel remained utterly silent, with everyone holding their breath as they observed this private moment. Ranger regarded Elaine for a considerable time, then rose slowly and deliberately. His movements were measured and respectful, ensuring his stability on the casket's curved top. For a brief moment he stood rigidly, resembling a dog in peak condition. Then, with a grace that moved many to tears, he descended from the casket, stepping gently onto the carpeted floor near Elaine. Wilson moved forward with the leash, but Elaine halted him with a raised hand. "Let him walk with us," she said, "with no restrictions. Mike would have wanted it." Chief Roberts gave his consent, and Wilson moved aside. The pallbearers arranged themselves, raising the casket with coordinated precision. As the solemn procession began its descent down the central aisle, Ranger stepped alongside the casket, positioned at heel, precisely where he would have walked beside Mike during patrols. Outside, the autumn air held the fragrance of rain in the distance. The hearse door closed with a quiet finality, sealing the last chapter. Ranger watched, a flicker of confusion returning to his stance. Wilson approached, anticipating the dog might need reassurance, but before he could offer the leash, Ranger acted. The Belgian Malinois walked purposefully to the police motorcycle that would lead the procession, Mike's motorcycle, now solemnly draped in ceremonial black bunting. Ranger settled beside it, adopting the familiar posture he'd used countless times when Mike was getting ready for their shift. Captain Walsh looked at the motorcycle officer who would be leading the procession. "Can you accommodate him?" The officer, who had previously worked with Mike and Ranger for years, responded immediately. "It would be an honor, sir." With care, the officer assisted Ranger into the specially adapted sidecar, designed for K-9 transport during parades and ceremonial events. The dog relaxed, his demeanor alert yet composed, as if accepting the situation. Upon arrival at the cemetery, the concluding ceremonies proceeded with military formality. The honor guard conveyed the casket to the gravesite, with Ranger following closely, still unrestrained but maintaining impeccable control. The chaplain offered concluding words of solace as the casket was placed. As the formal folding of the flag commenced, Ranger observed with unwavering attention, following each action. The carefully folded triangle was given to Mike's mother, who held it close. Next, the rifle salute occurred, 3 volleys that echoed through the autumn air. Ranger reacted slightly at the initial shots, but remained in position. By the 3rd volley, he remained perfectly still at attention, seemingly acknowledging the respect being shown. As the bugler played taps, the somber notes lingered in the air. Ranger advanced 3 steps. With careful movements, he lifted his paw again, pressing it against the casket in that customary salute, a concluding gesture between comrades that moved many to tears. When the final note subsided, Ranger retreated, then settled down near the gravesite, his chin resting on his paws. He remained steadfast until the last mourner had left. The cemetery gradually emptied, with mourners departing in small groups, many taking a moment to look back at the striking scene. A devoted dog kept watch near his partner's final resting place. Mike's family were the last to leave the gravesite. His father knelt beside Ranger, placing a calloused hand on the dog's back. "You'll always have a home with us, boy," he said, his voice thick with feeling. Mike would have wanted us to support one another at this time. The Belgian Malinois looked up at him, its amber eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that went beyond the boundaries of species. He shifted a little closer, acknowledging the bond, then turned his attention to the casket now being placed in the ground. Captain Walsh came forward, taking off his formal hat and holding it to his chest. He stated that the department had considered Ranger's future. Traditionally, canines are retired after their handlers pass away. Mike's mother looked up sharply. He was too young to retire. Too skilled. Walsh nodded. "That's what we believe as well. With your permission, Officer Wilson has volunteered to become Ranger's new handler. They already share a connection, and Wilson initially trained with Mike." Elaine wiped away fresh tears. Mike would agree. He often said Wilson was the only other officer Ranger seemed to truly listen to. As if in agreement with her words, Ranger stood, shaking his coat slightly. He glanced between the family members and Walsh, then purposefully moved to stand beside Wilson, who had come closer quietly. "I'll never replace Mike," Wilson said, his voice faltering. "I wouldn't attempt to, but I pledge to you and Ranger that I will respect their partnership in our work together." Ranger looked once more at the gravesite, his stance conveying a sense of finality, an acceptance that had not been visible previously. With deliberate movements, he turned and walked beside Wilson toward the waiting police vehicles. He did not look back. As any good officer would, he was moving forward, carrying the legacy of his fallen partner with him into whatever missions awaited. The bond between a canine officer and their handler exemplifies one of the most sincere partnerships in law enforcement, founded on absolute trust, steadfast loyalty, and a connection that transcends verbal communication. The final tribute given by Ranger serves as a poignant reminder that profound feelings are often conveyed through actions rather than words. Have you ever observed a moment where an animal appeared to comprehend death or loss in a manner that seemed inexplicable? What fosters such strong connections between humans and their canine partners that they can surpass even the final parting? If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like and share it with someone who appreciates the extraordinary bond between handlers and their canine partners. These incredible dogs risk their lives alongside human officers every day, demonstrating courage and loyalty that deserve our recognition and respect. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story about police canine heroes. Our collection of true stories about dogs keeps expanding, with new videos added each week to display these extraordinary collaborations. Please view the suggested videos currently displayed for additional moving narratives that emphasize the steadfast commitment of police dogs nationwide. We will also see you again tomorrow at the same time with another fresh video.